Is the record on?
We go. Yes, the record is on. And it looks like we are streaming live. Sorry, just as I wipe off some stuff off my glasses that I just cleaned. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our very first Who Do You Think You Are? The Sunday Gel or Leg edition, as it were. Glenn, Emily, Lasia, or Lasia, Emily, Glenn. Anyway, here we are, and we're so excited because this is kind of going to be a regular thing until we figure out at least what it is that it wants to be. So, as we start, as always, I would just like to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so eternally grateful to be coming to you from East Saanich or Saanishton, or East Saanich Road, Saanishton, Vancouver Island, where we live, work, breathe, and play on the unceded territory of the WSÁNEĆ people. We are so grateful to be here now in this moment, in these amazing, amazing, incredible times. So, let's get started because we agreed beforehand that we were going to do this for about an hour or so. So we're just going to be mindful of the time. But let's see. Glenn is here. Emily is here. I am here. And today is our first time getting together on a Sunday. So we have a few ideas, but we're just going to kind of go with the flow and see what happens. So I think the first thing that would be great to do is let's catch up on what's been happening in our lives and what we're thinking about what's happening in our lives since we last met. So, Emily, why don't you let us know what's going on for you?
Sure. So since we last met, I wrote a post about we talked about the Freedom Convoy, we talked about Brian Peckford, and I wrote a post about like kind of my perspective, my thoughts on what's really going on with it. Like there's lots of people that have lots to say about it, but I think so much of the narrative around it was kind of missing the bigger picture, the greater why. So I wrote a post about that. It did really well. A lot of people saw it and read it, and I think it really helped. My goal with it was to help people put language to what was going on, because I think so often when big things happen and there's lots of buzz around it, people crave language. They crave an explanation. They crave the ability to put it into its rightful place in their minds. And so that's what I was really trying to do with it. Um, yeah, and then that's just kind of a theme I've been mulling over for the last little while is, how can I play a role in helping people deepen their understanding of stuff, of things, of life stuff? Um, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Thank you. And just saying that, I'm like, what? We just met last weekend. But the joke was at the end, best podcast we never recorded.
Yeah. Yeah.
3 hour conversation.
Hours. Yeah.
Anyway, Honey Bunch, I mean, I know we live together and all, but why don't you weigh in because you don't live with everybody in our audience. So what's been going on for you this last month?
It's a month. Wow. Okay. Well, it's been tumultuous, obviously, for most people. So, I guess the best way to describe what I've been doing is just noticing, um, rather than deeply engaging or getting too far down rabbit holes. I mean, obviously, the big change, as from my perspective, as someone would generally describe it from you know in broad strokes, has been that um, COVID narrative is sort of off to the side after from Canada's perspective, after the Ottawa demonstrations kind of dispersed and changed into something else, I guess. Then the Ukraine Russia narrative has stepped into that spotlight. So, being able to stand back and notice, like, oh, okay, that's interesting that there's so much um, energy that's been retained from the COVID narrative and the freedom narrative in Canada, we'll say. And then it's been, that energy has been kind of just put, it's like the Indiana Jones meme where he's trying to pick the idol up and drop a bag of sand on, and he's dropping sand. Okay,
Right.
I'll just, here we go. And then of course it doesn't quite work. Um, so yeah, just noticing that there, like, my own emotions not getting too involved with things that ordinarily maybe 5 years ago I may have been more um, triggered into being activated, being like the Ukraine thing is obviously part of my family, right? So last I can get into a little bit more of that, but just um, I'm just trying to focus on people. There's people involved, so I'm going with that. I'm rather than changing my um, labels and bio to include, I stand with Ukraine. I'd rather just focus on peace and people involved. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Yeah, as I'm listening to you guys talking, I'm thinking, oh man, we talked about so much of this last week in our conversation. And really it was such a great conversation, because not only did we take the time to talk about what we're feeling, what's going on, but it was also an amazing opportunity for us to support each other as we were navigating all the feelings around what is going on. So for me, I'm amazed that it's only been a month ish, since we did our last podcast together, because it feels like so much has happened. And for me, for those of you who don't know, I am Ukrainian. Both sides of my family, parents, grandparents, great grandparents, great great grandparents going for sure. And then somewhere along the line, I'm sure there's some mixture of some other stuff going on. But I am Ukrainian. I am first generation Canadian, along with my sister. And both of our parents ended up coming over from Ukraine with their families. My dad just before the end of the Second World War, and our mom just after the end of the Second World War. And I have never been. Out of my entire family, I am the only one who has not been there. A couple of opportunities came up when I was in my early 20s, but they didn't pan out. And so I have only seen it from afar. I have only experienced it through the collective consciousness of Ukrainian people around the world and beyond Ukraine, and through growing up in Edmonton in a very, very, very just like solid Ukrainian community. I mean, we went to church, we went to Ukrainian school. My sister and I were in the first, or I was in the first Ukrainian bilingual class in Edmonton, and did that up until grade 6. We went to camps. We met kids from all over Canada, from all over the world, at worldwide jamborees through an organization called PLAS. And so and we spoke Ukrainian, and up until about 15, Ukrainian was the only language that we spoke in the house. English was not allowed. The word mova, which means language, was a constant meme growing up, because that was one way of honoring our heritage. So for me, I have to say, after 2 years of COVID bewilderment, bogglement, confusion, and discombobulation, to all of a sudden, it was almost like overnight, sometime, and it's not last week anymore, but the week before, but a week and a half ago, when the entire world seemingly shifted from COVID to all eyes on Ukraine. And to me, this was bizarre, because the way that it sort of came into my purview was that all of a sudden I was hearing from people that I hadn't heard from in ages, or people that I had just met were expressing their concern and worry for me and my family, because they knew that I was Ukrainian. And having not ever been there, but having this relationship with being Ukrainian in so many other ways, it was just weird. And and I didn't know what to do with it. And so at first it was kind of like, oh, I feel detached. I feel like I'm watching a movie. And then it sort of became, without trivializing what is going on in Ukraine, because there's some really, really intense, serious stuff. I mean, there are cities that are now decimated, that no longer exist the way they did a couple of weeks ago. But knowing that what's going on now is not just a week and a half old war. It's a response to something that's been going on for decades, even beyond. I mean, if you look into Ukrainian history, there's oppression over centuries. And so this is something that is just steeped in the Ukrainian collective consciousness. And I think one of the most interesting things that happened was a few days ago, my daughter Milana, who's been on the show before, actually with Emily, she texted me one day and said, "Mom, do you know the Ukrainian national anthem?" And I'm like, yes. And I'm thinking as I'm writing, she's about to ask me if I can teach it to her. My kid, who is proud of her Ukrainian heritage, but doesn't speak the language, understands enough of it, but doesn't speak the language, wasn't really interested in Ukrainian school, didn't really get into PLAS, didn't do all the stuff that my sister and I did growing up. All of a sudden, she's got the Ukrainian flag on her Facebook avatar. She is, I think the only one in her high school who is of Ukrainian heritage, or is at least, vocalize that. And so she's like, "Mom, will you teach me the anthem? Because there's a couple of kids who want to perform it at school." And so I'm like, yeah, of course I will. It could be a bit challenging though, because this anthem is old. Like, it's from 1863, I think. And if you look at the words, some of them are words that aren't even necessarily used right now. It's like an older form of Ukrainian. And all of it is about freedom and glory to Ukraine, like, realizing a free and eternally glorious Ukraine, about, vanquishing our foes, about laying our life I'm trying to speak in English, but also recall the lyrics in my head. But it's heavy stuff like that. It's just, it seems so antiquated, and it seems like it shouldn't be like that in this day and age. And having grown up in Canada, where that's just not what it's like here, it's still, taking me a lot to wrap my mind around what is going on, and why this is something that has been going on for so long, and how deeply entrenched even it is in my soul, just by virtue of me being Ukrainian. Now, the other part of that is that there's interesting stuff going on. The stuff that was happening with the truckers, the fact that Tamara Lich is still in jail, and I think she was denied bail, so she's there until, for reasons that, if you sort of like pull them apart and take them out of context, seem to be similar to what people are fighting for in Ukraine. Yet here, people who were standing up for that were vilified, were arrested, were put in jail. There were no conversations going on between the government and the organizers of the convoy. And now our prime minister is going to Europe in support of Ukraine, to help them attain their freedom. So it's confusing for me. It really is. And this month has been a roller coaster for me. There's a lot I have going on anyway. And I've been talking a lot to people that I wouldn't normally be talking to, because they're asking me, "How are you and your family doing?" And then I feel like I need to explain a little bit every time about how I've grown up here. I haven't been there. Although I do have some cousins on my dad's side of the family who are there. And I did speak to one of my cousins last week, and I texted him yesterday, but I actually haven't heard back from him today. I know that he's in Poland. His kids are in Kyiv. I know that they weren't in Kharkiv, one of the cities that was just completely demolished. And they, at the time, we were talking about other stuff too. How are the kids? Milana is in performing arts and musical theater. His daughter is a singer and performer as well. He was interested in my book, and we talked about work, and just we talked about other stuff. So it wasn't just that is happening. Um, but it's just like sometimes for me it feels like I'm hearing about or watching a movie, and because it's in such a different part of the world for me. So lots of conversations these days, lots of talking through stuff, even when I'm answering questions from people. And even this morning when I woke up at 3:30 and just could not get back to sleep, lots of mindfulness and spiritual practices being put into practice, kind of like about a month or two into the COVID unfoldment, when things really started to sort of ramp up in the collective consciousness. So, yeah, really, really interesting times right now, and so much to marinate on and navigate. And I'm just grateful that we have time today to talk a little bit about this, in case there are people out there who are listening and who are also having a tough time wondering, what do I do? Like, how do I feel? And is it okay to be angry? Is it okay to be afraid? Is it okay to be confused? So that's where I am right now in this moment. Anybody want to jump in after that?
So I heard Emily talk about language and languaging in in processing your own stuff, and then using that to help assist others with framing or putting a new lens and what's going on. And then lastly, I talked about language from a different practical perspective, but also that has its challenges, especially when you're dealing with generation to generation. And my thing about noticing, put that to the side for a second. Um, Again, I go, or maybe we'll bring it back in. The noticing thing for me is, um, lastly, you mentioned like watching a film. Well, the film Wag the Dog comes up in my head. Anyway,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
there's this thing of like, how do we know what's going on? I I'm quite comfortable understanding that I know nothing about what's going on in Ukraine or in Russia. I'm okay with that, not knowing. I don't have the same um, desperation that might come up, as in I don't have people there that I know, you know, and care for dearly. I sort of do that through proxy with your family, but again, that's also very light, um, a smaller element, I guess. But there are still people there who I think are being manipulated or allowing themselves to be manipulated, and there are there are opportunities to kind of step up for the people in Ukraine and in Russia to say, "Hey, what the hell's going on here?" Um, I know what you're telling us, but what is actually happening? Because there's such upheaval in the world when it comes to things like the monetary system um, beginning to kind of fail, which we started to see in Canada when the um, seizing of assets triggered a lot of people to look at their banks very differently. These these solid, institutions have been around for centuries, um, are seemingly not that, you know, not that at all. They're just a story that we all agree to, that like, yeah, we'll just put our money in there, it's safe, and they'll, we'll get it anytime we want. So when you have, Russia returning to the gold standard, and so many Russians and I think Ukrainians as well are into crypto and this kind of thing, because that instability is a lot more real there, I think, than it has been portrayed in the West. So that's one aspect, is the money aspect. But then of course there's things like food, the fertilizer, the fuel. Like Russia provides so much of our fertilizer for our crops to feed our people, like in say North America and in Europe, and the heating oil and the natural gas. So all of that being kind of messed with, even if you want to go out and say, yeah, these are all legitimately 100% as being portrayed in the media, um, yeah, that's still going to cause problems. I don't believe what's in the media. And one step beyond that, I don't feel that I have to justify why I don't um, accept what's being portrayed in mainstream or legacy media like BBC and Sky and CBC and CNN and Fox and all that stuff. I don't care. Like I'll find my own understanding what's happening by listening to myself first and then following my own impulses and intuition. And then wherever that leads me in the way of community, and you know, that might be with some social media platforms, or it might be, things like this, or it might be, meeting people out in the street and just having a conversation on a bus or something. But this whole thing of like, we need to be told what's happening in life, is that's starting to just crumble away, I think. Emily, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely resonate with everything you're saying about the media, about like for me, what's really coming up in all of this is just individual empowerment, just truly just being rooted in, okay, I need to get to the bottom of what I believe and what I desire to create in this world for myself. And I can no longer offload that deep personal responsibility onto an institution like the media, or like you brought up, the banks. Like, this is really what's coming up for me, is there's this term individual sovereignty. I used it in my post, or the sovereign, yes, individual sovereignty, the sovereign individual. For me, it's just like, what do I, it's always coming back to, what do I want to create? What do I see as possibility? What are my values? What are my principles? What are my beliefs? And I mean, I've been on this journey for years, but what's going on in the world and sort of like the veil being lifted is just, for me, all the more reinforcing this truth, which is that it's I am an individual with a mind, with a heart, with a consciousness, with power, with my own level of creative potential, and I am choosing now what to care about, what to focus on, and like you said, like, I don't feel anymore, because I'm so comfortable with this journey that I've been on. I'm so comfortable with the intuitive understanding that I've developed. I don't feel anymore like I need to justify why I don't believe the media, or why I don't put any stock into these institutions anymore to be these great white knight saviors that, we've been not led to believe, but we've collectively, like you said, Glenn, agreed upon. I don't have to justify it anymore, because I trust my own individual journey that I have gone on. And do I get it right all the time? Are things just so obvious and certain? No, but it's because I know that things are so uncertain. Like, things are not what they seem, and I've accepted that. I have come to a level of acceptance of that. Yeah, I don't know where else to go with that, other than just, creation from the individual standpoint.
I am loving everything that you guys are talking about. And some highlights here. Okay, so Glenn, he was saying, listen to myself first. And then Emily, you just said that we can no longer wait a minute, we can no longer offload that deep-rooted responsibility to an institution. And this just reminds me when, well, I mean, it reminds me of a few things. When Glenn was talking first, it reminded me of Emerson and self-reliance, and just, you know, that you don't have to look to any outside source. You never have to go anywhere. You don't have to look it up in a book. You don't have to listen to any kind of government or authority or whatever to know what is right and true and good for you. All of that wisdom, all of that knowing is not only within you, it is who and what you are. Period. End of sentence, as my teacher, Dr. James, would say. So that's the first thing that came to mind. And then the second thing was when you were saying, Emily, you know, we can't, it's not ours and we can't afford to like offload it, you know, to an institution, is just hearing when we were at I mean, I've seen it in a post, but hearing it when we were at the rally that we were going to go to when we were talking last time, one of the speakers who was so dynamic and so amazing, former firefighter, Roz, I can't remember her last name. I think she just goes by Roz when she speaks, but she said at one point, don't wait for a hero. We all have to be our own heroes right now. And that to me is like, there's like, yes, and thank you for the reminder, because and this is honestly like, this is the reason that the science of mind teachings and the stuff that I've been studying for the last several years, this is why it resonates with me so much, because the responsibility and the accountability and the onus is on me. And it's because I create my reality. I create my reality with my worldview, you know, founded in my beliefs. And that worldview, it's how I see the world. It's how I see myself. It's how I show up. And kind of like you just said, you know, am I getting it right all the time? Am I showing up as that infinite expansive universe all the time? No, at least not in its entirety, but that is what I keep endeavoring to do. And so even this morning, when I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, not being able to get back to sleep, and was feeling the pressure of the deadline of my revised manuscript, which is 4 weeks sooner than I had anticipated. And knowing that I got absolutely nothing done on it in the past week, and now I have 3 weeks, not 4 weeks, there was a point where I just broke down. And it was just, everything sort of felt like it was just coming down and caving in. And I know enough to know this is growth. This is part of the process. This is me kicking and screaming and clawing my way out of my comfort zone. This is me being impelled out of that comfort zone. This is me arriving at and crossing the trouble at the border, a la Maria Namath. But at the time, I think even more so because it was happening at 3:30 in the morning, and Glenn and Milana were asleep, and it was dark, and the world was, you know, at least my corner of the globe was quiet. Like even Mercury, our cat, was quiet. I felt so alone. And in a way, I wish there was someone that could just, you know, hold me and tell me that it's going to be okay, and you're going to feel fine, and this too shall pass, and it has come to pass. I even thought about, you know, crawling into bed with Glenn just to, like, you know, get a hug from him, but I'm like, I'm not going to wake him up in the middle of the morning. So I let it flow. And then I just, you know, also chose to, like, okay, yeah, this is what's happening, but who and what I really am is just so much bigger than this. And this is what's coming out right now. So let's just go with the flow. And there's no one who can do that for me. Like you know, I have prayer partners, I have my mentors, I have my spiritual community in Los Angeles and Palm Desert, and the things that I do here. And so I am inspired by people, but ultimately my journey is mine to walk, and the things that are mine to do are mine to do. And so it's up to me to step into that. And I feel like in this last month, with some pockets, like this morning in the wee hours, there have been opportunities and periods of extreme growth, just like in a big way. So I kind of rambled off there a little bit, but it comes back to that, like, we are the ones with the power, like you said, Emily. We are the ones who are creating our reality, and the more we choose to focus on the resilience and creativity that we are at our core, rather than what's going on around us, the more we're able to navigate what's going on around us, because we're centered, we're grounded, we're like anchored in the truth of who and what we are. Anyone?
Um, well, yeah, that this thing, like being okay with the turmoil and all this, I like my central kind of mantra that I try to remember is, I'm always safe, right? I'm living in a safe universe. I trust in life. It's a friendly universe. Life is friendly, that kind of thing. But that goes with the other component, which is that, like, every moment is a starting point for a new reality, right? And it's a challenge to remember that in most circumstances. Um, when when you're writing the story as you go, you're surrounded by the story. You see the narrative around you that you've created, right? So I create my life. It's happening around me. There's dark shadows. There's ominous clouds. There's there's things I'm projecting and willing into existence. We'll call that over there in the future. But right now in front of me is this moment, you know. So no, like, not getting absorbed by the narratives, whether it's the kind of fake, or not, it's not real what's happening in the future. It's not real what's happened in the past. They still exist. They're all happening at once, but you can't. Our minds don't work that way. We need to focus on, like, this, what's going on right now in front of me. So that's the challenge, is like, reminding yourself that what you're seeing is a reflection of you. It's a mirror, right? And and reminding yourself that I made this. My consciousness, my frequency I'm flying at, it varies, but this is who I am. What I'm experiencing is who I am. And not getting sucked into the role, or the narrative describing myself as having a role, um, is all, again, another challenge. This phrase came to me yesterday, that in media and in propaganda, you have, the victims and the perpetrator kind of, roles that are there. So this phrase of that um, you're done to, or done by, are those the guys who did it? They're the done by people. These poor saps over here were the done to people. They're the victims. And it's a challenge to not, like, put yourself in, ease into one of those camps, which is, I think, simpler to put yourself in the victim, done to kind of, you know like, this is happening to me, because of those idiots over there, the done by people who have no heart, and but clearly we know that if we're going to use those simplified, that duality of, like, binary, yeah, it's, you're either doing it to people, or you're suffering the, effects of the actions of others. It's like, no, you have to see yourself in both roles, but pan back and just say, look, it's a story, you are these are characters in a story, and you're allowing this simple tale to absorb you when you can make a new tale at any point, go off and be creative in a different way, get inspired, be with nature, doodle on a page, scribble some stuff, sing to yourself till words appear, whatever, because that is like connecting with, the muses, and like just see how you are important and valuable and worthy just by being who you are, and discover like new ways in which you can find fulfillment, because getting so sucked into like every single pixel on the screen, saying, oh wow, look at all this that's going on, it's like it's not good for the soul, so I don't live a perfect life, but I just wanted to say that it's like you're, it's a challenge, but having people around you as well, like you guys, just helps me move along, instead of like getting stuck into my phone and like, oh Lord, what's going on now. So thank you for being there.
And as you were talking, Honey Bunch, this quote came to mind, and I have my manuscript here, and it's one of the quotes I use here by Thomas More from Care of the Soul. Storytelling is an excellent way of caring for the soul. So, be mindful of which story you're telling. And then also like, don't be afraid to like dig into the story, to the storm clouds and the shadows and the things that you were talking about earlier on in the conversation. I'm just being mindful of the time, and I know Emily, you unmuted yourself, so I'm thinking you want to say something, and then maybe after that we can offer up what we were gonna bring to the table today.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that part of like one of the major things that I've discovered while I've been, so I picture it like at birth and as I grew up, I was given this box of beliefs. And then at one point, I realized I could take this box of beliefs and turn it upside down and empty out all the beliefs onto the floor and then sort through them and say which is in the keep and which is in the toss or the recycle or the upcycle, like transform it into something else, right? And one of the beliefs that I tossed was the belief that you were talking about, Glenn, the done by and the done to, the oppressor victim, the victim oppressor. That is a worldview that I no longer subscribe to. It's not to say that there aren't oppressors and there aren't victims. Of course, there are victims, like heinous things happen and people suffer as a result of that. But the lens that I look at the world through is not primarily one where the root, the foundation of reality itself is oppressor victim. Oppressor victim is a consequence of the reality that I am of the worldview of the reality that I see in the world, that I choose to see. It's a consequence of it. It's a consequence of choice. It's a consequence of wrong choice. It's a consequence of wrong action. It's real and it's there, but it is not the dominant worldview. Whereas a lot of these, well, a handful of ideological, philosophical frameworks and beliefs and systems, they centralize on that. That is the central theme of their ideological philosophy. And so I reject that completely. That is not going back in the box. Because I took it out and I looked at it and I was like, do I want to keep this? Because it seems appealing, right? It seems like, oh, there's so much that I could explain about the world and about the way things appear to be if I keep this belief, this oppressor victim belief. But it's not sufficient to explain everything, and therefore I don't build my whole worldview around this idea. So that's just what I wanted to say about that.
I love that. And I love the very relatable image of just like having a box of stuff, flipping it upside down, letting it spill on the floor, and then sorting through. That's awesome. I haven't heard it that way before. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I also just to, to your point, Emily, I think that, if in subscribing to a victim oppressor or victim perpetrator, worldview or being founded in that, there's never any room to like grow or forgive or move beyond that sort of paradigm, if you will. So yeah, that's something that for me, once I got into the science of mind teachings, when that's something that was blown, wide open for me. And I'm so grateful, which was also so incredibly empowering for me. It's like, oh my gosh, you mean like I have control over like what my life experience is like. Like I actually can impact my life experience. It's not someone else's fault. There's no one to blame ever then, right? It's just, okay, this happened. It didn't happen. Well, sometimes, it might happen to me, but for the most part, I am now of the belief that it's what's happening. Life is happening. And we are always, always choosing how we respond to what is happening. Sometimes it may be more direct, more personal, but ultimately we get to respond. So, with all of that being said, everything that we've talked about so far, Emily, maybe since you just spoke, could you please offer something to our audience to help them, to support them in navigating feelings, thoughts, beliefs that they may know or not know about, as circumstances unfold around the world, kind of in a topsy-turvy feeling way sometimes?
Yeah, so I have two things, and I'll say the thing that I'm certain of. Well, I shouldn't say certain. The thing that I have used and that I have benefited from. I'll say that one first, and then I have a second one. And Lasia, I would love to get your perspective on this second one. So the first one is a gratitude journal. And I mean, that's pretty, common, like, oh, big whoop, a gratitude journal. Like, I haven't heard that one before, right? But in my research methods class for psychology, I had to pick an intervention, and I had to pick an area of life that I was going to apply this intervention to. And then I had to do it over the course of several weeks, and I had to measure it. It was a self experiment. So I chose gratitude journaling as an intervention, and I measured how it would affect my sleep and my mood. And over the course of this experiment, my self-reported data showed that by gratitude journaling at night before I went to bed, my mood the following morning significantly increased, like significantly, because you plot all the data on a chart, and then you see how much it increased. So not only was it just like an intuitive thing where I'm like, okay, empirically in my own life, I can say that when I gratitude journal, I feel better. But now scientifically, I have this data that shows that it actually did work. So I would say, if you are the type of person to wake up in the morning and check your phone and go, there are horrible things happening, how do I deal with this? Maybe it starts the night before by entering into gratitude, because then that carries through your night and you wake up in a better place. So yeah, I would say try that, and try it with a goal or with an intention, with a purpose behind it. And then the second thing I also studied in psychology was this intervention called worry time, which is where if you tend to worry and you tend to take on a lot of worries, instead of being like, oh, everything's great, I'm just going to try and convince myself that these worries don't exist, acknowledge that they exist, take 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day to write down what these worries are and get them all out there, and then see that they are outside of you. By the sheer fact that you've put them out on paper, they're now outside of you. They exist here on the paper, and now I don't have to carry them with me as a part of me into the rest of my day. So that was the one I wanted to talk to you about. Like, from a science of mind perspective, like, you know, should we be putting those things on paper? Are we creating those things by doing that, or are we taking ownership and power over them by doing that?
I think there are many different ways to, look at that. I love it. I think that that is an amazing tool, because to me, that speaks to awareness. When there are things that are whirling and swirling around in our heads and in our hearts, and we don't use language to, sort of like bring them to light, they will keep whirling and swirling around and festering, and doing, and it's not even them doing it, it's just because it's our relationship that we have to those ideas, to those thoughts, to those beliefs. I really believe that until we become aware of them, we can't do anything to change our relationship to them. And what you're suggesting, I think, is fantastic. It's something that I've done with my groups and with my clients, and I've done for me too, is to put a name to it, to like put language to it, which, you were talking about earlier, makes it more explainable, makes it more understandable. And then sort of, as you were talking, I was thinking, and from a science of mind perspective, it's an amazing, amazing tool to show someone you are not your beliefs, you are not your thoughts, you are not your ideas. It's what you do with, those beliefs, those thoughts, those ideas, and how, what your worldview is, the lens with which you see, your world. So I love that. I think that is fantastic. And it also reminds me of Julia Cameron's Morning Pages,
Yeah.
which is not the exact same thing, but that's something where in the morning you would wake up first thing before you check your phone, and you would just write 3 pages, stream of consciousness. And if you didn't know what to write, you'd write something like, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, or repeat the thought that you had just written until something new came down, with the idea that it kind of gets rid of the guck and the muck, that's in there, and detaches it from you so that you can be free to allow the creative flow to just come through you that much more freely. So yay, thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so gratitude journaling at night before going to bed, and then worry time at some point during the day to get stuff out of here and like in outside of you, detach yourself from it. That's fantastic. Thank you. Honey Munch, what about you?
Okay. Actually, on the worry thing, another trick I learned from the Seth material is making an agreement with yourself to that it's important that these things that are affecting you, you acknowledge them as something to worry about, but you will right now you will not. You will agree to worry about it another time. But right now, your priority is X, and then you focus on that. But you make a solid agreement. I'll worry another time. Now, whether you actually get to that, you probably will. But like, it's better to bump it down the road, because it's like you're being true to your purpose by saying, "What's important to me now, though?" And focusing on that. Um, my, I love the gratitude stuff. It's amazing. Um, the I know for me, deep breathing when I'm in a panic kind of state um, really helps. It's not, I haven't necessarily nailed down a technique that I always use, but I'm going to go quickly to this Andrew Weil version of breathing in for a fixed period of time and then holding and then breathing out, as described in healthline.com. Um, so there's various little tips there, where you place your tongue behind your teeth and you preferably lie down to do it. But if you're standing up and you're in a panic, you're not going to be able to lie down. So he's saying, prepare for the practice by resting the tip of your tongue against the roof of your mouth, right behind your top front teeth. You'll need to keep your tongue in place throughout the practice. It takes practice to keep from moving your tongue when you exhale. Exhaling during the 4-7-8 breathing practice can be easier for some people when they purse their lips. So the following steps should all be carried out in the cycle of one breath. So first, let your lips part. Make a whooshing sound, exhaling completely through your mouth. So you're blasting it all out through this whoosh. Number 2, next close your lips, inhaling silently through your nose as you count to 4 in your head. So you're in for 4. Then for 7 seconds, hold your breath. Make another whooshing exhale from your mouth for 8 seconds. When you inhale again, you initiate a new cycle of breath. Practice this pattern for 4 full breaths. The held breath for 7 seconds is the most critical part of this practice. It's also recommended you do practice only for 4 breaths, this 4, 7, 8 breathing. When you're first starting off, you can gradually get up to 8 breaths. You can go for as long as you want, I think, but it's a good, if you try it for a few times, your body gets trained quickly into knowing I can do it. So it's breathing out all the way, then it's closing your lips, inhaling silently through your nose. So you're coming in for 4 through your nose. And then you do that about 4 times, okay? It just kind of calms your body. It's been scientifically proven. It's on the internet, so obviously it's true. Okay, so that's a good one. And then you want to escalate that to like Wim Hof breathing or other. There's lots of other methods, but and then you can do alternated nostril breathing, also another version of that.
Wow, thank you. You guys, awesome. I had gratitude and deep breathing or rhythmic breathing as 2 of mine. So you guys have covered that already. And and can I, without name dropping, can I just say, well, 2015, Honey Bunch, do you remember when I went to New York for the Integrative Nutrition Health Coaching, the conference? Andrew Weil was one of the speakers, and he did that exercise with us. He was such a good speaker. It was so great. So I am a huge fan of gratitude because now that Emily Rogers has proven it scientifically with her with her experiment, but it is something that raises our vibration. It is something that I know for myself. There have been many times, but there was one particular time a few years ago where a friend of ours had just committed suicide, and there were lots of challenges going on for us. And I just lost it after church one Sunday, and I was screaming and crying on the couch. And Glenn just sat down beside me, and without trying to fix anything, just quietly said, "Love, what are you grateful for?" And I don't even remember what my first response was. It was probably like, grateful for the snot running down my face or whatever. But it was just, okay, and then, something else. I'm grateful for this, and I'm grateful for this. And slowly, not only did it calm me down, but the more I started saying, I'm grateful for this, the more I started finding something to be grateful for. And so just like the rhythmic or deep breathing, it can really, really activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which then allows clarity, allows space, allows focus, rather than just feeling completely discombobulated and in flight, fight, or freeze mode. So I love that. And then the deep or rhythmic breathing, I think, is also fantastic. There's another exercise that I really like, which is the square breath, where you close your eyes and look to the left upper corner. And then as you breathe in for a count of 4, your eyes move over to the upper right-hand corner. And then you hold for 4 counts as your eyes move down to the lower right-hand corner. Then you breathe out as your eyes move to the lower left-hand corner. And then you hold as your eyes move back up to the upper left-hand corner. And holding the breath twice there, is also a very, very calming thing, because you are also focusing on breathing out. You're expelling as much air out as you can, so that the breath that you take in is actually oxygenating you more fully, rather than just mixing with, old breath that's been there for eons that hasn't been expelled. So I think for me, I'm going to go with forgiveness, and specifically through Ho'oponopono. It's something that Glenn and I have been practicing quite a bit over the last few months. It's something that we did in our Tuesday night meditation group a few weeks ago, and it's just for me incredibly liberating, incredibly empowering, incredibly calming. It is something to anchor myself in. And when I'm listening to someone, it is something that even though I'm repeating the four phrases, I find myself more present with what the person is saying, with what the person is experiencing, because I'm not getting caught up in what it is they're saying or experiencing. I'm just present for them, so that they can say and feel, and like it's holding a container for someone. So the four phrases for people who don't know are: I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you just repeat those four phrases over and over and over again in your mind. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And the idea is that it clears whatever interference there may be. It clears whatever sort of thoughts or beliefs are in the way of you being able to relate freely to someone or something in a situation yourself. And when it comes to forgiveness, I feel that it's just so important to be able to let go and not hang on to resentment and anger, or be like steeped in it, thinking that, well, you know what, like I'll show them, like if I can hold on to this anger. Because ultimately there are so many quotes out there that are some variation on this theme, but it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So when we can let go, when we can release, then not only do we sort of, are we able to better navigate whatever situation, whatever relationship, but we free ourselves. And ultimately that's the most important thing, is to free ourselves so that universal flow and energy that we are can flow freely unencumbered. So Ho'oponopono, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. All right, so some amazing tools, some amazing conversation. Did everybody bring a quote to finish off with?
Yeah,
Okay, Honey Bunch, you're at the ready. What's yours?
I have two.
Oh,
And they're
okay.
short.
Okay.
Okay. One of my favorite Russians, Dostoevsky, Fyodor. To go wrong in one's own way is better than to go right in someone else's.
Nice one.
And finally, some guy called Gandhi. The best and most solid work was done in the wilderness of minority.
Ooh, oh. Emily, we need your reactions. Don't unmute yourself so much. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so, yeah, this is all Emerson type thing too, self-reliance, like the non-conformity, right? The non-conformist.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a challenge, but it's the stuff of life. Like I keep saying that phrase, like the stuff of life. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Emily, how about you?
So mine is, so because I knew we were going to talk about like troubling, difficult times, going through turmoil. This is a Voltaire quote, and he says, doubt is an uncomfortable condition, but certainty is a ridiculous one. So basically it's like, yeah, doubt's uncomfortable, but it's always going to be there. Like, this is life. Like, this is the context of life. It's to persevere and discover and explore and create and build possibilities in the face of doubt, not even in spite of doubt, but like because there is doubt. That's why we keep going. That's why we keep exploring we keep creating. Because we're never going to reach certainty. That's why I stopped myself. I said earlier, I am certain this. And then I said, no, I'm not certain. Certain means there's a limit, there's an end that puts an end point on something. Stopped creation.
I love that. Thank you. Did you have a second one or no?
No.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so not to be outdone by my husband here. I have two too. Okay, so the first one, and it was just, I thought whatever comes up, that's what's going to come up kind of thing. So I just went and looked at a few things, and this is the one that went, choose me. So Richard Wagame's favorite here, from his book, What Comes from Spirit. Never forget that we carry a common practical magic within us, that we are stardust and we carry comet and whirlwinds inside of us, that we are all magic beings and we always were. It just made me feel good when I read that. And then the other one is from Sufi mystic, poet, musician Hazrat Inayat Khan. There are two aspects of life. The first is that man is tuned by his surroundings, and the second is that man can tune himself in spite of his surroundings.
Wow.
And there you have it.
Very nice.
So that's it. That's the end of our first Sunday gel leg edition until we come up with a better name.
Yeah.
I thought of another one, but I instantly dismissed it. The Earnest Homies, but it's too cute. Yeah,
Okay, that's good.
That's very cute. That's very cute. Okay, so Emily, if people want to get a hold of you, get in touch with you, find out more about you, where can they go?
EmilyRogers.ca is my website. I'm also working on a Substack newsletter, which is, how does it where is it, EmilyRogers.substack or Substack.EmilyRogers?
I have to say, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, wow.
Substack.
It's not a surprise to you, honey.
Get with the program. I'm just kidding. Yeah, Substack.
Consider me enrolled.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a newsletter. Barry Weiss is on it. Who else is on it? Lots of great writers and just.
And it's Emily Rogers with the DGERS, not Rogers.
Yeah, it's the Welsh Rogers, not the British Rogers.
EmilyRogers.substack.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Worldview by, is that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, awesome. Okay. Congratulations. That's great. Okay. And then for me, you are welcome to go to my website, lasiacahoot.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter and get information on upcoming events and classes and programs. And if you're interested to hop on a call with me for a 30-minute soul activation session, you can also join me on Facebook on my Lasia Cahoot Soul Excavator page. Honey Bunch, anything you want to add?
I just want to add that I just signed up to Emily's Substack. It's that quick and that simple.
Thank you. Now the pressure's on. Now I gotta actually be making content now.
Should you be working, doing some writing, some stuff here?
Yeah. I gotta go.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Honey Bunch. Thank you, everyone, for listening, for watching, for being here live. Honey Bunch, did you pay attention? Was there anyone?
Not today.
Not today. I wonder if everyone's at church or something right now.
Jen is busy, I guess. Yeah.
Didn't even think of that. Anyway, so yeah, however you engage with us, thank you so much for your time and presence. We are so grateful for you. So that's it for today. This has been another, excuse me, episode of Who Do You Think You Are? The very first Sunday Gel Leg Ernest Holmes edition. And we'll be back with another one in another week or 2 or 3. All right, that's it for now. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.